Your thoughts on that?
By the way, I wanted to say something quickly unrelated because I see one of the key developers in the audience at Twitter. I want to give a massive shout out to Twitter. I was actually looking at Linda's tweet earlier, Linda, the CEO, and everyone's talking about threads and threads versus Twitter, but the numbers are not looking too good for threads and looking pretty damn good for Twitter. So I've just pinned a tweet. I've tweeted it literally just before the space, just mentioning my theory on how threads could end up being a net positive for Twitter and how it could end up bridging people from Instagram all the way to Twitter. And me and Sully were kind of debating that, whether it makes sense or not. I tweeted it like 3 days ago. And then the numbers are looking like I'm going to give the finger to Sully and say, hey, I was right again. But check it out. It's a tweet above. And the reason I mentioned it just because I saw someone in the audience that wanted to kind of tip my hat to them. But yeah, let's go back to Nick's question to RFK All In. Go ahead, guys.
Hey, Mario, Solomon, and Nick, thank you so much for hosting. This is Matthew Tower. I'm the host of RFK All the Way, a podcast commenting on Bobby's presidential campaign. And I'd like to speak to the question, who's the most qualified to be the next president? And my stance is it's definitely Robert F. Kennedy Jr. by far. So I'm going to outline several of the points that support that idea. The first is his resume. His resume is extraordinarily aligned to support his mission. His mission is to end the corrupt merger of state and corporate power that has taken over this country. And he has an entire multi-decade career suing these corrupt agencies who've been taken over by big pharma, who've been taken over by corporate interests all the way through. So he knows these agencies inside and out. And so one of the first things he's going to do as president is completely restructure these agencies. He's really going to drain the swamp for real, not just a talking point, but a massive restructuring of our government because he knows them.
Do that? How would he, Michael? I believe you said your name was
Matthew.
Matthew. Sorry about that. How would he restructure that? Because a lot of people do use the talking point that Donald Trump said he was going to drain the swamp or whatever, and I believe he actually coined that term. But how would RFK do that when you're saying that Trump couldn't do that? What would be the difference?
Right. So I have to be careful here because I do not speak for Mr. Kennedy. So some of what I'm going to say is a bit speculative because he hasn't outlined an extraordinarily detailed plan of action. But just summarizing from what I'm hearing from him, my sense is he's going to go in and he's going to identify those kind of careerists who've been there forever and fire them, get rid of them. People like Anthony Fauci, who were there for 50 years, someone like that who is making money off of his position from big pharma shouldn't be in that position, right? So, and he's talked about the CIA, for example, and that there are some members of the CIA who are loyal to this country and others who are essentially serving the needs of the military contractors, the weapons manufacturers who profit off of war. So I think he's going to do, but because of the fact that he's been suing these agencies for so long, he knows them inside and out. He knows where the bodies are buried. He knows where the skeletons are in the closet. And he knows that there are some people there who are essentially on the take, who are essentially corrupt, and others who are actually loyal to America. So I think that's as much as I want to say on that, because I think that would be for him to outline a more detailed plan of action. But he's made that commitment, and I trust and believe that he's going to do this because he spent his entire life aligned with people who have been harmed by big corporate interests. You look at the way that he basically saved the Hudson River from polluters, right? And so he had to sue the agencies and get to know them in order to, as part of his litigation career. So I'd like to move on to my next point about why I think he'd be the most qualified to be president, and that's on the topic of peace and diplomacy. Contrast him with Biden. Biden has basically been driving us. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, so that's exactly what I was going to get at right here, because there are, and I want to point to the audience real quick and say there are a lot of conservatives that seem to be supporting RFK Jr. Some people would say that he is more of a John F. Kennedy Democrat, which is a lot more of a blue dog Democrat. It's that's what the term is. But why do you guys support RFK Jr.? And for the Democrats in the audience, why would you support RFK Jr. over Joe Biden, or why not? Because it seems to be a polarizing topic for the Democrat Party, and as I said, they seem to be shutting him out. And RFK all the way. I'd like you to give a little bit of feedback on that and why you think that the DNC is actually pushing him out.
So it seems like there were two main questions there, Nick. Why would a Democrat support RFK instead of Biden, and then why is the DNC doing what it's doing, right? So I'll start with the first one. I think one of the single biggest contrasts is World War III, which could lead to nuclear war. Do we want World War III? Do we want nuclear war, or do we want peace and diplomacy? And you're right, Bobby Kennedy Jr. is a JFK Democrat, and one of the things a lot of people in this country just don't know is that none of us would exist today. None of us. We would not be alive today if it wasn't for the assertive diplomacy of JFK working with his brother, RFK, in a dialogue with Nikita Khrushchev to resolve the Cuban Missile Crisis. And that it came so close. It was a hair's breadth away from a nuclear war. And all of the generals, the CIA, all of the brass, everyone told JFK to invade Cuba, to attack Cuba, while Cuban missiles were pointed at the United States, or Soviet missiles in Cuba were pointed at the United States. And what no one knew at the time was that the decision to launch those missiles was not held by Nikita Khrushchev. It was not held by Castro. It was actually held by the commanders on the ground. So if JFK had caved and invaded Cuba, we would have had a full-scale nuclear war, and humanity would have been wiped out. We've got a proxy war. We are arming the Ukrainians to fight against Russia. We were told at the beginning of this that it was a humanitarian mission. That statement has been exposed as a lie. The whole goal, the whole time, which has been revealed by President Biden, Lloyd Austin, and other members of the government, is to weaken Russia's military, degrade its ability to fight, and do regime change in Russia. Regime change, I remember when the Democratic Party was opposed to the idea of regime change. There were a lot of people, not the entire Democratic Party, but a lot of Democrats were opposed to what George Bush did with Saddam Hussein and doing regime change there. And that's actually how Obama won, was that he was against that war. So now we have another anti-war candidate who's kind of a rebel, but he's gaining more and more steam because he's exposing these lies that we've been told and what the real purpose of this Ukraine war is. And as
RFK,
go ahead.
I mean, first of all, sorry, summarize your point, and I'll continue. Sorry.
Yeah, so I would say, and he gave an amazing peace and diplomacy speech. I'll just wrap this up by saying he gave a fantastic peace speech a few weeks ago. Go find that at Kennedy24.com, which was a sequel to the most phenomenal speech any president has ever given, which was his uncle's peace speech on June 10th, 1963. So go watch those speeches, and that orientation towards peace and diplomacy and conflict resolution, I think, is really resonating with a lot of disaffected Democrats. So that's why. And then, shall I move on to the DNC topic, or did you want to say something there, Solomon?
No, we're going to come on to that, back to that, because that's an important topic to cover in a bit. I just want to go to Sarah. Sarah, I mean, you've been quite vocal about this, so I'd like for you to present your thoughts about Kennedy. What's your thoughts about Kennedy, and is he a viable candidate?
I don't think he's viable at all. I think that those on the right that are supporting him because of his stance on the vaccine, but he is not his uncle. He is not the same kind of politician. In fact, I think that it needs to be pointed out that his family does not support him. They are not supporting his bid for presidency. And I think that gets left out of a lot of conversations. We hear all the time, he's a Kennedy, but he is on the outside looking in on the Kennedys. He's not his uncle. He doesn't have the same charisma that his uncle had that made him great, that made him polarizing. And I'm also a little curious why we left off DeSantis out of this conversation. I think that he has probably the best chance at beating Donald Trump in the primaries, and we seem to have left him out of the conversation.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that we left Ron DeSantis out of the situation, but it is very important to note that RFK Jr. is still running as a Democrat, because there are a lot of conservatives that are supporting RFK Jr., but you have the Republican primary and then you have the Democrat primary, right? And so Ron DeSantis, while he does have the best chance out of all Republicans to beat Donald Trump, it's worth noting that you do have somebody that is less polarizing than Republicans or Democrats running, that's sort of down the middle line here. And so when you're saying that he's not like John F. Kennedy and he's not like the rest of his family. Why is that? Why is he outcasted? Because he definitely seems to be more toward the middle. And then also, what is a Kennedy Democrat? If you can explain that to the audience.
I think, as you said earlier, that they are, or they were considered core Democrats, where their policies were very almost centrist. But I think RFK, I think that he is quite polarizing. And I think the reason why is because he has so much support on the right where I have never seen, and I don't know if anybody has, for a Democratic nominee. I don't understand the pull that he has with the right, with the exception of his stance on vaccines.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, but Sarah, quick question on that. Actually, let's go to RFK on that question. Sorry, Nick, just a quick question, then I'll go to Nick. So, I mean, what Sarah's brought up is the point about the vaccine. She's right in the sense of that will encourage voters from the right, but then at the same time, he's probably going to lose voters from the left, because the left, as much as we want to ignore it, a lot of people in the left are pro-vaccine, are pro-mask mandate. So, I mean, how does he navigate that? That, yeah, this would help him in the general election and may actually probably help him win it. But in the Democratic election, he probably this may count against him. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, Solomon. So RFK Jr. has said he's not even running on the vaccine topic, and he's happy to discuss it if it comes up. But I think the foundational question here is, what is a Kennedy Democrat? What kind of Democrat was JFK? What kind of Democrat was RFK? And what kind of Democrat is RFK Jr.? So my first point there is on war and peace. And it's very interesting that I made this point that we are on the verge of World War III and nuclear war. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. is the only major Democrat who is saying we need to talk to the Russians, we need to have diplomacy, we need to put an end to this war right away. The whole premise of this thing is wrong. This is a proxy war, and it is risking World War III. And he gave a speech that was a sequel to his uncle's speech, and his uncle saved the world from nuclear war. And it's very interesting to me that Sarah didn't even respond to any of those points. And this is what I've noticed, is that there are these disingenuous attacks on Bobby Kennedy because he is a threat to the CIA. He is a threat to the deep state. He's a threat to the military industrial complex, because he wants to get us out of a war economy and get us into a sane economy, a peace economy, an economy where our relationship with the world is based on building bridges and outreach and not bombing foreign countries. And this is a massive transformation. We have been almost at war for the last 60 years. Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine, it just goes on and on and on and on. How many trillions of dollars have we spent overseas killing people that could have been spent on development both here at home and in foreign countries? His uncle, John F. Kennedy, started the Peace Corps, and instead of a soldier being what foreigners overseas saw, like an American soldier, they were seeing Americans dressed in Peace Corps uniforms who were there to help and work with local communities. This is what it means to be a Kennedy Democrat. What it means to be a Kennedy Democrat is to bring people together. I was at his launch speech, and there was a sign that was the most popular sign. It said, "Heal the divide." I want to say it right now. The idea of left and right is fake. It is a phony idea to divide us all. We are Americans first. We are humans first. And what it really comes down to is, what's the right thing to do? What's the right thing to do when it comes to...
So quick question, Matt. When you say the left and the right is a phony thing created to divide us, it sounds great. And then he said we are Americans first. It sounds very admirable. It sounds very great. But there's clear stances that are split between the left and the right. And I think that's just human nature. Should it be as polarizing as it is? Obviously not. Is there are people in organizations, people systematically trying to get the country more polarized? That's debatable. But to say the left and the right doesn't exist, do you think that are you exaggerating just to make a particular point, or you genuinely think that the left and the right technically don't exist? Because having political ideologies has existed since for hundreds, for thousands of years and across the world. We'd love to get your thoughts, man. And then I don't want to pivot away from the topic. Just was curious on that particular point.
Mario, are you open to being red pilled? Because I can red pill you right now on this. Are you open to that?
Bro, I've had every single pill color in my system
Well,
across the
well,
world.
well, here it comes.
Man.
Here
What do you
comes.
mean red pill? Like, come on, dude's been
All right.
injected with an IV
Well-
of red.
Well, so
So
here it
what
is.
does
So
red
here
pill
it
mean?
is.
What does that mean?
That's a reference to the Matrix, and the idea is when you take the red pill, you see something about reality that you haven't seen before. So here's the way to understand the polarization in this country.
Bro.
It's Operation. It's called. It has a name. It's called Operation Mockingbird. The CIA for decades has been directly employing the so-called journalists that we see on the screen.
Matrix.
Yeah, I think
based on CIA.
so I think the Operation Mockingbird is having an effect on your mic right now. So you talk
Yeah, I'm
about
sorry.
Operation Mockingbird, but I'll let you finish your point, and then I'll respond.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I silenced my phone, so hopefully I won't get interrupted again. So Operation Mockingbird is a CIA program that's been going on for decades, where the CIA pays so-called journalists, they're not journalists, they're propagandists, to spin out talking points. And then based on those talking points, this insane level of polarization gets created, and we're being lied to about virtually everything that matters. And Bobby Kennedy talked about this. His metaphor, here's the metaphor, is if the parents of a family are lying to the kids are going to be at each other's throats. Again, that's a metaphor. But if the government is lying right now, only 22% of Americans, according to polls, believe what the government is saying. Only 22% of Americans believe what the media is saying. Why is that? It's because we're being lied to. You know, we were lied to about the Iraq War. We were told Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. We're being lied to about the Ukraine War. So one of the things Mr. Kennedy is going to do, he's doing it in his campaign, and he's going to do it as president. He's going to tell the truth, and that's going to heal the divide in this country. It's time for us to come together and have a kind of a peaceful revolution and change everything in this country. And so yes, the mainstream media loves to talk about left and right. Yes, they love to talk about that. I don't trust the mainstream media at all. And I think a lot of that is manufactured division to get us to focus on something other than the real issues, like the military-industrial complex that is bankrupting this country. We're now tens of trillions of dollars in debt. You know, we spent $8 trillion alone, to my memory, on the wars over the last 20 years. Okay, 20 years of wars, $8 trillion. What would that have done for this country? But when the mainstream media is running articles on whether or not Social Security should be cut back, or whether or not Medicare should be cut back, that is taking the focus away from looking at that real problem, which is all these wars.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's a good point. But Ben, I wanna go to you, because if I remember right, since they were talking about pills, like you telling me you didn't use these words, but you've been orange pilled because you said I'm now a Trump fan.
Well, it's not that I'm a Trump fan, right?
And you said I was gonna vote for Trump now. I mean, I said
Well, that was before the
these are not your
indictments. That was
words,
before the
yes.
indictments. That was before the
You
indictments.
changed again, bro.
I've changed again.
No,
I have. Well, I took another pill. I don't know what it was, though, but I need a cigarette after hearing about Mockingbird or whatever. So I would like to know, could somebody clarify RFK Jr.'s position on gun control, LGBTQ rights, and so forth? Because I know he is in favor of common sense gun reform. I'm just wondering how that's going to go over on the right. And for me personally, I don't know. Whoever's not under federal indictment is fine to be a candidate with me. I'm just going to leave it at that while I smoke and recover from the Mockingbird.
Yeah. So Ben, I'm going to get back to that federal indictment thing here in just a few minutes. But Matthew, I'm going to let you respond to that if you want to.
Sure. And just as a reminder, I don't speak for Mr. Kennedy, so I'm going to paraphrase what I've heard from him as best I can. On gun control, you know, what he has said is that he's a believer in the Second Amendment, and that he has said, look, taking away certain guns or performing restrictions to certain kinds of guns, he doesn't believe that that's going to make a fundamental difference to what's going on. And he has also talked about his belief that SSRIs have become a big problem and have been involved in a lot of gun violence. And, you know, he's also said, like, look, right now, our Bill of Rights is under assault. The First Amendment has been totally shredded. I don't know if you all saw this, but there is just a court case where Bobby Kennedy who was running for president, sued President Biden, along with many other parties, for censoring him, for literally restricting his free speech rights on social media. And a judge in, I believe it was in Missouri, sided with him. Biden appealed and tried to get this stay put in place, and the judge overruled that and said, no, you're not going to censor a presidential candidate. You're not going to, and there's been so much censorship. So our Bill of Rights has been under attack. You know, during the COVID lockdowns, people couldn't go to their places of worship. There have been, and so what he said is like, look, this is not the time and place to start eroding the Bill of Rights. We need to respect people who own guns. I personally have a slightly different perspective than he does, but that's his take, and I support him for president. And then on the LGBTQ issue, you know, there's so many top points to discuss there, and I'm not sure if there was a specific question. I can tell you about one specific thing that I remember he brought up, which is when he was asked about women's sports, he said, you know, look, Title IX was struggled for so long. It's so important to, you know, defend a safe space where women can compete with each other and not have someone who is born with the advantages of having been born a biological male who's then subsequently transitioned, that it makes sense that women's sports should be for biological women. He said something like that to my memory. I don't remember any other particular topics that came up related to that.
Yeah, so this is what I want to do. I want to ask the audience for here, and I'm going to go back to Ben because I need him to elaborate on this. Do you believe that Donald Trump is now unqualified to run for president of the United States or be president of the United States because he is now under federal indictment? Do you believe that this is a political attack, or, you know, is this a fair prosecution of a former president? Ben, I need you to elaborate. Why is Donald Trump unqualified because of the fact that he's under a federal indictment, as you said? Come on, Ben.
Well, so my own personal opinion is, no, I don't view this as political, right? I can completely understand how those would view this optically as political, but at the end of the day, they're serious allegations. They have to be litigated, right? In my mind, this is not an overly complicated case, right? You have obstruction of justice, which is by nature garden variety. He's admitted, in my mind and in my opinion, to obstruction of justice several times, right? Including the Bret Baier interview. Bret Baier asked him, you were issued a subpoena, why not give the boxes back? Well, because I wanted to go through the boxes. Whatever reason he deems is legitimate is irrelevant, right? He has admitted that he did not comply with the subpoena. That's number one. Number two is, do I think it's disqualifying? What I think doesn't really matter, right? It's not disqualifying. Running under indictment is not disqualifying. I absolutely accept the arguments that people say, well, I don't care if he's guilty or not, right? That's their preferred candidate. That's fine with me. But I don't view this as political whatsoever. You know, all these, so at the end of the day, on the other side of the aisle, right, you have all these alleged whistleblowers and all their complaints and their allegations keep falling apart, right? You have, well, David Weiss, the U.S. attorney from Delaware, he was forbidden from bringing this charge or that charge. Well, that's not true. He's come out and issued a letter to Jim Jordan. What was Jim Jordan's response? Well, should we really trust a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in the Biden DOJ? So their credibility, you know, has fallen apart. Show a document that you complained. Show some paper record that you raise these concerns, and they can't do it, right? Well, and Lev is in the room. He can speak to this. There's a recording, alleged recording in Ukraine of Joe and Hunter Biden being bribed, right? That was made in 2014 by a man who died in 2011. So I guess he made it from beyond the grave. So for me, I don't view it as political. They're very serious, right? And I think if he takes it to trial, you know, he's going to be convicted on some of the counts, especially obstruction of justice. It's open and shut. It is open and shut obstruction of justice. There's just no way to defend that. I don't know what defense could be mounted against it, right?
But Ben,
you know, it'll come down to this. I'll finish with this, right? You know, is a private citizen of the United States required to comply with a subpoena? Yes or no? Well, the answer is yes. Was a lawful subpoena issued? Yes or no? Well, the answer is yes. Was that subpoena certified? And the answer is yes. Is there any credible testimony or allegations thus far that would suggest that any of those documents were intentionally removed from the shipment that was to be sent back after the obstruction? And the answer is yes. Were any documents found on the premises of Mar-a-Lago after the subpoena was certified? Well, the answer is yes. That's obstruction of justice, open and shut. That's why federal prosecutors like bringing those charges. They're called darling charges because it's just so easy to get a conviction.
But Ben,
on, right?
I have to ask you though, when it comes to, I know you believe in, because I've had a lot of conversations with you. You believe in the principle of innocent until proven guilty, right? You have these charges that have been brought by the Biden Department of Justice, and they're merely accusations at this point. Donald Trump is innocent until proven guilty. So, the accusations that have been lobbed against Joe Biden and, Hillary Clinton and such, why is that any different? Because, they're...
Well, I'll tell you why it's any different. Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, right, nothing that has been launched or alleged against Joe Biden has ever risen to the necessary threshold to even present to a grand jury, right?
I mean, it's very important here because the federal indictment that Donald Trump is under has to do with classified documents in Mar-a-Lago. But Joe Biden was holding documents in his garage as well as the University of Pennsylvania since the 1970s, and he said that himself. So why is that different now than what Donald Trump did?
So, okay, first of all, we have a general idea of what the documents that Joe Biden or that Donald Trump had.
I don't think Ben, I don't think it's about the documents. I think it's about obstruction of justice, and that's the difference. Biden gave back the documents when requested. Trump decided to play games and not give it back. So we could discuss all the other parts of the indictment and the other 30 that might be coming. But the one that Ben was talking about precisely is obstruction of justice, which has nothing to do with where Biden had his documents. The bottom line is Trump was requested and subpoenaed to give back the documents. It's black and white. Not only did he not give back the documents, but they have video evidence of him trying to hide the documents.
So, oh my! Are we doing this now? I mean, 438 years or whatever is 400 plus years for for that charge. I mean, that itself disqualifies any sort of idea that they went into this with any sort of political even-handedness. 37 different charges flowing from that.
But that's not the question, Mike. We keep going around back and forth around the question. The bottom line is that indictment, the obstruction of justice, is black and white, and that's what Ben explained.
Everything else, it's a political hit job, and what we're talking about here is the fact that you can't do that to the Bidens. Hunter Biden is on video snorting cocaine off the
can I just respond to that? Hold on.
They can't find a single federal crime there that he'd see that
Let me respond to Mike quickly. Okay, Mike, I'd like to respond to you very quickly. I hear what you're saying, right? The cocaine, the gun, and so forth. The issue is this: if you're going to bring a drug charge against somebody, you can't just say, "Well, there's a picture of Hunter Biden snorting what we believe and we all know to be drugs, or smoking what we believe or know to be a crack pipe." Right? It doesn't work like that. In a court of law, you would say, "On or about this day, Hunter Biden was found to be in the possession of a substance that, was under, we assumed it to be crack cocaine upon tests from the lab and weighing it up. It was 3.3 grams of crack cocaine." You can't just go to court and say, "Well, there's a photo of Hunter Biden doing drugs."
And the guy's on video admitting that he tried to smoke Parmesan cheese off a rug.
Okay, how is that? Explain to me. Okay, explain. What charge would that be? What? Hold on. What charge?
Mike, make your point, and I'll let Ben respond. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, if they can find over 400 years of charges from a couple of boxes of documents, the marquee charge of which, by the way, around the Iran documents, weren't even a part of the indictment. It now turns out. They can't find a single day of prison. I mean, don't even pretend.
There's still superseding indictments coming.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. What charge would you like to bring against Hunter Biden for admitting on videotape that he tried to smoke Parmesan cheese, or that he was smoking crack, or this or that? What criminal charge would you like to bring?
There are over 400 charges that have been documented in the Marco Polo documents. The fact is,
name one criminal charge that you could bring and get a conviction.
Listen, buddy. Here's the way we're going to play this. Okay, a federal prosecutor. Let me just ask you the question: do you think a federal prosecutor could not find a single crime? We already know they did, because he got a sweetheart plea deal where he's not going to see a day of prison.
But that's not a sweetheart.
You think they offered that? You think they offered that to Donald Trump with the 400 plus years of charges? You think that they approached him and said, "You know what, actually, we recognize that you may have taken some classified documents and you didn't give them back when we asked nicely. So we're going to give you a slap on the wrist, and we're going to offer you, we're going to charge you, but you're going to have a plea deal where you won't say
You don't think Trump?
Why didn't they give that offer to Trump?
So allow me to
answer
respond.
that.
May I respond? May I respond? Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Ben
we are not.
responded,
Yeah, we are not at that phase yet. There will be absolutely. You know, Donald Trump's lawyers right now, they are probably waiting to view the totality of discovery, and of course they're going to float the idea of, listen, maybe we can strike a plea deal, right? That there's some charges you're just not going to be able to litigate successfully in court. So we don't know that yet. Second of all, in regards to the Hunter Biden sweetheart deal, what are you talking about? How many people, and I don't want to do whataboutism, how many people get prosecuted for the exact same offenses as he did, given what we know of the case? What, falsely applying, a federal firearms license? Out of 27 million federal firearms licenses in the year 2020, 437 were referred to federal prosecution because they dealt with straw purchase issues, okay? He did not get a sweetheart deal. If he were anyone other than the son of
Rachel Maddow is on primetime TV.
May I finish? Thank you.
How long are you going to go for?
Another 50 seconds, not even. At the end of the day, prove, here, you're an intelligent man, show me how he got a sweetheart deal, and can you tell the audience whether or not you specifically are in possession of the totality of the facts and the evidence that federal prosecutors had when they cut that deal? If they could have charged him with a hell of a lot more and he got this deal, then yes, it would be a sweetheart deal. But
let me ask you something. Rachel Maddow was on primetime TV. She is the most watched left-wing cable news host on primetime TV, and she openly speculated that the Justice Department might, as part of a plea deal for Trump to avoid prison time, say that part of the offer is that he can't run for president. So they would have a mission accomplished with stopping his presidential run, and that would be his get out of jail. That was
Rachel Maddow doesn't work for the DOJ.
Obviously, but the fact is this is the fact that this is being openly floated by the even senior intelligentsia of the cable news hive mind tells you that it's on the tip of everybody's tongue, and everyone knows it.
All of a sudden,
they're
she's the
threatening a death sentence.
Media, and then when you don't like something, she's a total idiot. So let's be fair. Yes, she's biased in her opinion. She says what she says, but that's not fact. And then we keep playing ring around the rosies here. Hunter Biden snort coke. If Hunter Biden did something illegal, I agree with you. He should be charged with it. But the bottom line is
he was charged, and they made sure he didn't see a day in prison because he's a Biden.
Let's assume
because he's part of the regime.
Let's assume that. But I agree with you.
If you had the political opposition locked up in another country, the State Department would issue sanctions.
Mike, but let's say I agree with you on that. I'm not arguing that. Mike, let's say I agree with you. What does that have to do with Trump obstructing justice? Because that was the question that we got.
Because the justice system, because everyone knows
it's unfair.
Everyone commits 3 felonies.
I'm the first one that could listen.
Right.
I agree with you. I'm the first one that doesn't agree with it. I'm the first one that will agree with you that the justice system is unfair. There's bias in there. There's pro right wing, pro left wing in there, and it's just a matter of who you get and how they want to do it.
But it's more than that, Lev.
It's
more than that. You know, it's more than that.
I am. I was destroyed. My life was destroyed by the justice system. So I agree with you on that, Mike. But that still doesn't excuse Trump of doing illegal things, and that's the problem. And we're trying to say just because the justice system didn't prosecute Hillary Clinton, that means Trump should get away with everything he's doing, and I think that's wrong. I think we should definitely look back and try to fix the justice system, but I don't think Trump should be getting away with doing anything illegal just because there was a bias in it and they didn't charge somebody else. Just like on taxes. Almost every single individual in the United States, if they wanted to, could be indicted on tax fraud or tax evasion. But then
when Hillary Clinton did it, and they looked at her and the whole bleach bit and wiping it and the stone tear and all of that, what they did is they bent over backwards. They were like Gumby. They bent over backwards to say, well,
I agree with you. I was the first. I was standing there screaming, saying, "Lock her up."
It's a brand new standard called extreme carelessness.
Right? I agree with you. I was there screaming, "Lock her up."
It just means extreme carelessness. Extreme means gross. Careless means reckless. But the difference is coming up with that brand new standard means that she avoids jail. They wouldn't do that for Trump.
I agree with you. I agree with you. But that doesn't mean. But why should they do it for Trump? And what if all of a sudden the Justice Department is doing something right? They fixed it. So are they going to do it because they let Hillary Clinton?
You know that they're not doing it right for the Bidens. This is what authoritarian regimes do. This is what we sanction other countries for. This is what we sanction other countries for. This is why there's been no Pakistani PM who's completed term. Once you have this system in place, where the Justice Department can be wielded by an incumbent regime. They will do this if RFK somehow magically pulls to 50-60% in the polls, you don't think they're going to find some BS reason to do this?
But see, the
precedent has been broken. The legitimacy itself now has to be contested.
But you're missing 4 years of the Trump regime. How come he didn't go? How come Bill Barr and the Trump DOJ that was, believe me when I tell you, leaning towards him and listening to him, didn't go after all of these things and go after all these people? If there were so many criminals, how come Biden didn't get indicted under the Trump DOJ? How come Bill Barr didn't allow all of this supposed Ukrainian stuff to come in and arrest them and then charge Bill Biden? How come that didn't happen? Because there was no proof to it or evidence to it. Because it was the Trump regime.
No. Oh, you can't. No, you can't say it's no. You can't say there was no proof from it.
I could
there
definitely
was
say
2.5 centuries of Lev. There was 2.5 centuries of precedent that the Trump administration respected, that you don't simply arrest the leading opposition. No. Now, by the way,
Mike, they did not respect anything. Bill Barr went to
I'm not a Trump justice.
Bill Barr went to Southern District to make sure that I got arrested. You're going to tell me the head of the Attorney General of the United States went to go make sure that my arrest went smooth and everything was quiet to shut me up? Are you kidding me?
I don't know the particulars of your case. I actually don't know anything about
please look it up, and then you'll see that the Trump justice system did what they did. And Bill Barr was worked for Trump like an attorney. If he could have, believe me, he wanted to save Trump's ass.
Bill Barr was not Trump's attorney.
Doc, you're not even an attorney, so please, you just
hold on. If you think I'm,
yes, I am.
Well, hold on. Okay.
Doc, take it easy, Doc. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm not defending Bill Barr here. I mean, if you know anything about my sort of talks on this, I think Bill Barr is completely of this whole system. He came out of the CIA. He was a cover-up operative for Iran-Contra. You know, he's a guy who represents the national security state, and this is one of the reasons that even though it was his Justice Department that had the Hunter Biden laptop in 2019, they didn't move on it. They wouldn't dare. And Bill Barr would never let that happen. Now, I'm sorry if something happened to you in particular with respect to the Trump Justice Department. That sucks. I'm not the Trump Justice Department #1 superfan. That's not what I'm defending here. What I'm defending is 250 years of precedent and what is an incredibly scary time right now, because now the system itself, the fabric has been completely changed. We have never dared in 250 years of history. Every president in the last 50 years has committed some sort of felony along the way. Bill Clinton, George Bush, Obama, you name it. Look at what happened with Reagan and the Iran-Contra scandal. Anyone could have been locked up by a Justice Department, but no one did, because that's the symbol of a broken third world country. And we would not have diplomatic legitimacy if we did that. That has now been crushed.
Mike,
you better believe that China is going to be mentioning that indictment in the next summit of democracies.
Mike, the difference between all the other presidents in the 250 years history compared to Donald Trump is they didn't flaunt it in the DOJ's face. They tried to comply, they tried to shut it down, and they tried to make it go away, and they cooperated. What Donald Trump did is he basically told them go fuck themselves, and he's going to do whatever he wants, and he's going to continue doing it. And that's why.
Hold on a sec. That's like saying someone's resisting arrest, and so you shoot them 500 times in the mouth.
No,
right?
No,
it was because it's 400 years of charges, Lev. That's 4 lifetimes of stacking charges.
What do you mean?
What you were saying was correct.
When you commit 70 felonies and get caught.
Oh yeah, that's what happens. Hunter Biden didn't commit 70 felonies and get
caught.
We're
not talking about Hunter Biden. We're talking about
we are, because that's the president's son. It's the president's bagman. That's how the current sitting president had his whole family financed for 50 years.
Charge them for their crimes.
Dan, I want to ask you real quick, Dan, because Lev made the comment that Donald Trump knew that he was committing these crimes or whatever, and that that he should have complied with the DOJ, but when we're talking about Joe Biden having documents, classified documents, and keep in mind, he was never president of the United States at this point. At the most, he was vice president, who does not have declassification powers, was taking classified and top secret documents, keeping them in his garage. And I'll shift from this topic here in a second, but we're talking about 400-something years.
But there's still an investigation. Nick, but wait a second. There's still an investigation, though. There's a super master.
Who's the investigation by, though?
Joe Biden. What do you mean? They're investigating Joe Biden, Right now, there's
But
an
Joe
investigation.
Biden is
Right,
investigating Joe
It's
Biden,
by a
right?
U.S. attorney, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. Hold on,
exactly.
Nick.
Thank you,
Now,
Benjamin.
Nick, intent is going to be very important here, right? So this is the difference. We don't know what.
Yeah, Seth Rich was a DNC operative, but they shot him too.
Oh my God.
Right?
Okay,
Doc, you're right.
So
Completely.
let me no. So what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna let Ben respond, and then maybe I'll let Doc respond. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, so I don't know about Seth Rich being shot by people, but in any case, so look, the situation with Biden is this: we don't know what the contents of those documents are because they're under investigation by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. Okay, that's
But
number one.
Ben,
Number two. Hold
isn't
on,
that
Nick.
Trump-appointed U.S. attorney? And I'll let you go on. Trust me. But
Yeah, so
that Trump-appointed U.S. attorney is right there, part of the Department of Justice.
So was Bill
Department of
Barr.
Justice, no?
yeah, but Nick, of course they are, right? It just Joe Biden didn't remove him. He could have requested his resignation, just as Trump requested the resignation of a whole bunch of federal prosecutors, but he didn't. Secondly, the issue with Biden is this, right? Yes,
Trump
he was
removed 46.
He was.
Doc.
So the issue is this, right? With Joe Biden and his documents, yes, they found the documents and he said to the FBI, "Come on in, search all my properties." You know, that's what the story is. We'll wait. That's what the reporting is anyway. Come look wherever you want. There's no need to go to court to get a court order or a grand jury subpoena to return the documents. All Donald Trump had to do was go mail a box. I'm being metaphorical here, right? He could have hopped in his golf cart, gone down to the post office and mailed the box back. That's all it comes down to, right?
I don't think so, Benjamin. I don't think so because I think there's more to it. Because after Susie Wiles went in there for 3 interviews, we're going to find out exactly what transpired
at this point
with those
in time,
documents.
right? Yeah, that's what we know right now, right? And so the issue is nobody needed to go get a court order. Just you have to return these documents, and then have what I believe is garden variety of. So no, I don't want to give them back, hide them, blah blah blah. That's the difference, right? So intent is going to be paramount in this situation. We don't know the extent of what Joe Biden had or did not have. We will know at some point. But again, nobody had to go to court and say, I want these documents back and, I don't want to give them back. Don't give them back, hide them. That's the difference. Same with Mike Pence, right?
Robert Hur is actually a special counsel. So he's working as a special counsel, not just a district attorney or whatever.
Yeah.
So he is a special counsel.
Yeah, Nick, let me ask you a question. So, in your opinion, I'm just curious. So, if Trump breaks the law and does what, like he said, he could go kill somebody, shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, you agree with that? Trump should be basically, because he was the ex-president of the United States, that no matter what he does, he's able to do whatever he wants.
This is such a dishonest framing. I mean, to even put it that way, he didn't shoot someone on Fifth Avenue. These are just documents in a box, the same way a dozen presidents have done before. I mean, they even tee up the question that way is so dishonest.
You're telling me so? A dozen presidents before him went to their resort, took out documents, and started whipping them out and showing classified documents to strangers.
You're talking about the Iran documents?
The Iran
what
documents.
You just said. Okay, do you know that they're not part of the indictment?
Thus far, but they can absolutely be.
Wait. So you built your entire case on something that is now known to be bullshit. Are you going to acknowledge that?
No. Oh God, that's
Why
ridiculous.
Is that bullshit?
Because it's literally not a part. He hasn't been charged for that.
He's not
so
charged.
If you're going to talk about what he's been charged for,
document.
You need to actually cite what that was. But you won't do it because it's so weak. It's so weak that you won't even do it. You have to go to things he hasn't even been charged for to defend the charging documents.
No. The obstruction of justice case is black and white. Go ahead, Ed.
Even if it has nothing, if he didn't show the documents to anyone, the fact that he refused to return government documents back to the government, that's the problem here. Other presidents didn't do that.
They were his documents.
And they had to find 37 different charges totaling 400 years. That by itself totally discredits it. When you have 6 weeks later, you have Hunter Biden with guns, drugs, and foreign prostitutes getting not a single day in jail with a sweetheart plea deal.
You said a dozen presidents did that.
I mean, I feel like, and by the way, Mario, I feel like we've debated this point on like 12 spaces here. I'm trying to direct it back to what I think is really the campaign issue here in the Trump-Biden RFK debate, which is the threshold issue here is who is going to take on the corruption in the national security state. There were issues in 2016 around immigration or around healthcare with Bernie Sanders. Right now, the threshold issue above everything is Is Trump? Is DeSantis? Is RFK? Who is going to actually tackle the national security state and the corruption in the Justice Department?
Mike,
first and
can I
foremost.
just finish my response to what you said? Because I was questioning what you said.
And then I'm going to follow up.
Better be good.
I'm gonna shift a little
Well,
bit right
no,
after that. So, Ed, go ahead, respond to that. I'm going to shift a little bit and then ask you a question. Go ahead.
So Mike, you said that a dozen other presidents did this, but they haven't. A dozen presidents didn't knowingly take documents, and then refuse to give them
Hillary
back to the
Clinton had a
government.
private server with classified documents on it. And the FBI lowered the standard
Mike,
from gross negligence
you said a
to
dozen
carelessness
presidents.
just
Mike,
to avoid it.
Presidents.
She
Name
was
one
Secretary of State and then she ran
Hillary
for
Clinton
president.
was never president. I'm not talking about
Obama
Hillary.
took
Okay,
every
but
document he
no. So Ed, let me ask you that. Does that
That's the
make a
best you
difference,
got.
though? Because we're talking about Donald Trump being the president of the United States and documents there, but all of the other people that we're talking about here were never president of the United States. Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, no declassification power. Joe Biden, Vice President of the United States, no declassification power. So why are we even, talking about them in the same category? Because they did do a lot of these things where they did, bleach fit documents, hide them in their garage next to their Corvette or whatever. That seems to be on a totally different level, no?
Nick, but still, does that excuse everybody else to go break the law because they got away with it? So if I got away with tax evasion, does that mean that nobody else is going to get charged with tax evasion?
This is what the question is, Lev. Why should Donald Trump be prosecuted for something that other presidents and, people that didn't actually have the power to take these documents or declassify these documents,
and the answer is very simple. First of all, Vice President Joe Biden, the investigation's still open, so we don't know where that's going to go. So Hillary Clinton, I agree with you. Hillary Clinton, I agree with you. There should have been an investigation opened up, and that was a bullshit thing that they just wiped it out because I was the first one.
She was under subpoena too.
I agree with you, Mike. Mike, I agree with you. But two wrongs don't make a right. That's the problem
No. But two wrongs against the same person makes it.
It's not the same person.
Wrong. You know what it is, Led? I mean, you have to pretend everybody is completely stupid to accept the threshold framing here. And we could go around on this all day. I'm happy to, but for Mario's sake, the topic of this is who's most qualified to be president. And the issue here is, Lev, if you agree with this, if you agree that it is an injustice for there to be a maladministration of justice, and for there to be this corruption in the Justice Department, who is strong enough to take it on? Who is focused enough to take it on? And one thing that I'll just say as a final note here is, when I heard the RFK All-In speaker speak and talking about what was RFK's plan to get rid of the worst elements of the Justice Department's career staffers and in the national security state agencies, and the Trump administration in its last year actually did start to put together a playbook on this. This involves the whole Schedule F phenomenon and the ability to potentially fire tens of thousands of these stalwart career bureaucrats to replace them using the Schedule F technique. And I wonder if RFK has talked about or considered or looked into a similar remedy.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to shift just a little bit back to the original topic, and I'm going to tell the audience. Because we're going to go back to the topic that we were just talking about. Do you think the Department of Justice indictment of Donald Trump is fair? That's the first question. I want you to put that in the bottom right-hand corner. Give me your answer, because we're going to be going through those once we shift back to that topic. I'm going to be asking those questions. But also, Ed, I want to ask you this on this topic. Why won't the DNC, the Democrat National Committee, allow debates against Joe Biden in the Democrat primary? Why is RFK Jr. being shut out, and is that fair? Go ahead.
I mean, I don't know if it's fair or not, but this is just how it works. Trump didn't have debates from his challengers either in 2020. It's just because you don't want to weaken your candidate. Joe Biden's the favorite by far right now, and the idea is that if you have primaries, it's going to weaken the candidate because he's going to have to argue different points with people from within his own party. I think it would be fair if both the RNC and DNC said, okay, from here on out, we're doing it after next election. I think that's how it should be.
Okay, but why not start now then?
Why start with a Democrat? Why would the DNC start when the Republicans have never done it?
They have a Democrat opponent, somebody that is challenging the sitting president of the United States, polling at almost 12%, Ed. Don't you think that And this is a guy that has not been able to get mainstream media attention. Does that change it at all, or
I
what
don't.
do you think?
Well, I mean, there's been candidates polling higher than that against presidents in the past, and both the RNC and DNC never allows for this to take place, just because they don't want to weaken their opponent or weaken their candidate. But I do think
But you're
that
saying
it would
not
be fair.
weakening their opponent, man. Like, don't you think? Like, we're talking about democracy. Like, it seems like the left is a lot of save our democracy.
I don't think it's right, but both sides do it, and I don't think until both sides agree to stop doing it should the DNC stop. I think I think both the DNC and RNC should say from here on out, after this next election, we agree to allow primary candidates to debate, even if our party's in power. I think we deserve that, but I don't disagree with the DNC saying no, because I think that's just the way things have been. And why if the Republicans didn't do it when Trump was president, why should the Democrats do it and potentially?
But somebody has to start here, especially because, Ed, you have to.
No, I agree.
But
look, if both parties say we're going to do it, if you both say you're going to do this for the next, not this coming election, but the next one, then you're both locked into doing it, because you don't know if you're going to be in power or not. So I think that would be the fair.
I would even agree for them to do it now, but Trump doesn't even want to debate his own people in his own party right now.
You don't know that.
He said that.
Back to that.
No, he didn't.
We'll get back to that here in just a second. But it's important to ask here, Ed. Look, you've watched the videos. You've seen a lot of what came out of Europe today, and I'll post them to the top here in just a second. But is it not obvious to you that, Joe Biden's getting older? He's gone downhill a little bit, right? He's 80 years old right now. Is it not fair to say that maybe he should step to the side and then, go off into the sunset as, former president of the United States, and let somebody take charge that is totally there cognitively, is sharp, is ready to stay up, 18 hours a day? Come on, is that not a fair assessment?
Have a younger candidate. I think a younger candidate would be great. But I mean, I also don't think Biden should just step down because he's older, or say I'm going to debate somebody just because other Democrats want to have a shot at it.
And he's only a few years older than Trump. They're both.
He can't walk from here to there.
May I present the other side on this real quick?
What I'm going at, because there's a lot of people talking at the same time, so I don't know who is running the orphanage in the background of the people that we're unmuting here, but Ed, see the difference between the mental, let's say, acuity of Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. Who has gone downhill most? Joe Biden, has a lot of trouble speaking at this point. He seems to get lost every time that he's doing some sort of event. But you look at him back in 2016, even when he was vice president, he was a lot sharper. Yes, he had a lot of gaffes, and even President Obama said the same thing. But look at him now. It's hard to believe that this man is even controlling the White House at
bowels.
This point.
It's hard to imagine him controlling his bowels. That's what it is.
Yeah, but
like
I make these things, but Ed, I want to give you a fair chance to respond. So,
I mean, he's 80 years old, and the average 80-year-old is probably about where Biden is right now. If you look at the stats, the average 80-year-old, they speak slowly, they stutter sometimes, even though Biden has had.
They get dementia. They get dementia at 80 years old.
Dementia, but there's no signs that Biden has dementia. To say
that's
that,
nonsense.
No,
I think as a chiropractor,
I've had two grandparents who had dementia, and I think that's an insult to say that Biden had dementia. I think
it's an insult to your grandparents. What it is?
No, I think.
Doc, since when you're a lawyer or a doctor, can you figure it out who you are?
I'm both. I'm a chiropractor and an attorney.
Also.
Yeah, I don't sit here and lie about postcards. I got educated in my life.
I mean, chiropractors are not.
Mario, can you say something to the guy once and for all that I sent you a postcard so you can shut up already, because he keeps mentioning it, just lying to the public
several times. Mario's not the authorities here. Go ahead and release it, Lev. It's yours. Go ahead and release it.
To release it to you? Never.
No, release it to the public.
Like when you beg.
Tweet it out.
I will.
Okay,
Twitter account. Tweet it out.
Right now, what I was asking is, Ed, man,
Hey, Nick.
You know, I'm going to make a video yesterday, and I'm sorry, tomorrow, not yesterday. I wish I would have made it yesterday.
Nick, you're starting to sound like Biden. You're starting to sound like Biden. Well, make it yesterday, Nick.
Make it yesterday. But I think it would be necessary to put out a comparison between Joe Biden back in 2016 and Joe Biden now, because it's, you know, yes, you can say every 80-year-old is like this. Okay, then maybe 80-year-olds should step to the side.
No,
whatever.
I agree. I think 80. I think 80 is too old to be
Why
president.
should he not be debating
he'll
somebody
be 80,
like RFK Jr.?
I mean, he'll be 86. He'll be 86 if he has another term.
But Nick,
so I mean, that's
we
crazy.
have the major candidates. They're all elderly. They're not guys in their 30s and 40s. They're all aging elderly men.
All right.
Well, Vivek and
look
DeSantis
at this. Look,
isn't.
I have a 90-year-old grandfather who just continues going and going and going. You have Warren Buffett that I believe is almost 90 years old, and he keeps going. He's still mentally sharp.
Why
right?
can't Biden keep going and going and going?
Because he's a corrupt pedophile. That's why.
Right?
Doc.
This is my question. Well, Doc, I'm gonna step aside from that because that's another topic. But
RFK is not this.
Look at Joe Biden,
either.
Sarah. You've seen it. You've seen it, Sarah. Look at the videos. You can't deny it.
How many
Joe
times
Biden
did we see
is
Donald
going
Trump
downhill
wander
sharply.
off a plane and wander away from the waiting
Never.
car?
I have not seen a single video.
Come on.
Never.
Please
You're
post it
imagining
to the
it.
top. I've not seen it yet. Please post it to the top. But you know, we see every single day. We've seen 4, 5, 6 times today Joe Biden having to be led to certain locations by different dignitaries, and you know, sometimes it takes them 30 seconds to get attention from Joe Biden to tell them where they need to go. The King of England. Again,
but Nick, what if Biden was in a wheelchair? Let's say he had something wrong with walking. Does that mean he can't think or make the decision? His
Joe
movements.
Biden in a wheelchair?
Yeah, what is
Joe
that?
Biden in a wheelchair?
How do we?
Because,
what if he is?
He's got legs. He can walk on his own.
Right.
He's totally autonomous.
Okay,
so
so
if his
obviously,
mind is there, he should be able to find his way, especially if somebody is telling him where to go. But even if he does have somebody pointing the way to go, he still can't figure it out. So I think the wheelchair analogy is actually.
They need an Easter
not very
bunny
good.
in England. They need an Easter bunny to point them the right direction.
Yeah. So, Aaron, I want to bring you in here because you've been up here for a while. Why should, you know, so what is the difference between RFK Jr. and Biden? Why is he trying to primary Joe Biden? And should he be up on stage debating Biden?
Hi, Nick. Thanks for having me. You know, I'm going to be, it's so difficult for me to be unbiased. I'm listening to all this, but Biden called Bobby and myself and 12 others killers on TV, and Bobby is a friend and representing us, you know, the 9 of us in a lawsuit. So it's, you know, I'm trying so hard.
Lost her.
Yeah, I was thinking I just.
I thought I was sorry.
Yeah. There you go, Aaron. Go ahead.
Could you hear me previously, or could
No,
you hear
you muted yourself. But go ahead.
Okay, I must have done that. My apologies. So I've been asking myself, and I couldn't hear Sarah. We don't have each other blocked, but I couldn't hear her, so I had to. Sorry, so I didn't hear what she said, but I've heard the rest of the conversation. So I was trying to listen on the computer simultaneously. But I think that with, I would like to be able to see Bobby debate, but I also understand that previously they haven't. So, you know, or Trump, you know, when Trump was running for re-election, they didn't. But yeah, I would like to, because you see the constant just barrage of negativity against Bobby Kennedy and mainstream media. But you know, I would like to be able to see him have a voice and be able to debate Joe Biden. I mean, I think people.
I agree with Aaron. I think they all should debate. I think that's best for us, because for the people, so we could see.
And yeah, it's you know, I see for me it's anybody but Biden, and I know that some are going to disagree with me here, but and it's not just because of what he's personally said about me, but it's just I try to stay unbiased. I have a lot of Democrats. I grew up a Democrat. My parent, but my own family are not. They're long-standing Democrats, but they're just not. They're not. I don't think that the majority of Democrats really like Joe Biden. They just. I don't know that they know enough about Bobby Kennedy, or they see the headline news. So or they hear the vaccine stance, and then everything else goes out the window. So I think it would be only fair for them to really hear what he has to say about other things, especially for those who don't listen to podcasts or don't listen to, or who aren't on Twitter. I think that so many of those people aren't getting to hear his voice. So that's
So Dustin, I want you to jump in, and then I'm going to go to Tira right after. Dustin, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Nick, and good to see everybody. Listen, it's crazy to me, the idea that debates are immediately assumed as weakening a candidate. Like, it should be an opportunity to show his cognitive ability. His debates against President Trump in 2016 were really important because he outperformed the crazy low expectations that were set for him. So I don't buy at all that, like, to me, as somebody who's coached presidential debate candidates before they went on the debate stage, I see it as nothing but opportunity for Biden. The low expectations of his cognitive abilities, like we talked about here, basically, if he didn't crap his pants and start blabbering incoherently, it'd be a win for him. So I don't see why they don't do
it. Tira?
Well, let's hope that he doesn't, crap in his pants. That would be very bad. Look, I think that I don't believe in holding people to different standards than other people. Incumbents don't debate, right or wrong. They don't debate. Okay. They don't want to face debates for whatever reason. And the parties go along with that. So to me,
enlightening.
I'm just saying that is what we have done. And for this panel and most people on it to sort of say, well, Joe Biden should do this when, Donald Trump and nobody else would do this.
Are we still waiting?
Excuse me. Am I talking or can someone still hear me?
Mike,
go ahead, Tira, go.
I hear you.
Okay, because somebody just keeps.
Mike,
somebody's interrupting.
I don't know, but go
okay.
ahead, Tira.
So that's number one. So I don't think he should if he doesn't want to. I think Bobby Kennedy might, in fact, unless they change the rule.
You guys are talking about Tira, right? She's in listener right now, as I see it. I don't think she's even on the stage.
Mike, you can't hear.
Mike, I'll drop you down and bring you back up.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Now I'm getting lost. So I think based upon the current rules, it appears that Joe Biden cannot even be on the ballot in Maine. Now, I assume they're going to change, or New Hampshire. I assume they're going to change that, right? Because New Hampshire is refusing to give up its initial slot. So we assume they will change that, but it's possible that Bobby Kennedy will have unlimited ability to speak to the people without Joe Biden there, et cetera. And that's, I think, a good thing. I have nothing opposed. I'm not opposed to that. I think that's great, but I don't see any reason why we should force Joe Biden to debate when no other incumbent debates on either side. Okay. Number two.
Okay, but Tira, isn't that okay? So before we get to number two, and trust me, I will let you do it. Why though? Why though? Because you're talking about, like, I have to go into a little bit of whataboutism here. There are a lot of precedents that were set around the world, especially in the United States, regarding different laws and arguments that were made in the past, and we kind of evolve, right? And we figure out what is right, what is not right. Do you not think that it is a good decision to make the President of the United States actually have a debate with with a competitor that is, garnering more and more support? He's polling almost at 12% in the polls. Is that not fair to say that should happen?
Well, first of all, I think he's actually gone down in the polls, because I remember when he first started, I think it was closer to 18 to 20%, and now it's 12%, and he will go down more. Look, I don't think Bobby Kennedy is a credible Democratic candidate. I think he is a credible sort of Republican view of a Democratic candidate, if that makes sense.
But who decides that?
And the people,
he's running
look,
as a Democrat. Why not platform?
I guess
the people are deciding that, is my viewpoint. Okay, it's going down because people are seeing some of his stances. And look, I believe it would be interesting to see him debate because he's running from his stances. It's fascinating to listen to him on gun control, on all these things where he has literally been the most left-wing person you can imagine. All of a sudden it's like, well, maybe we don't need gun control. Maybe we need mental health. I mean, it's pretty funny to listen to him. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's going to have the support. His name has support. Democrats like Kennedy's. I get that. but I don't really think he's one of those credible candidates. So I'm not that concerned. By the time of the primaries, he'll probably be down at 4 to 5%. And if you think that, you know, I don't see any reason, as I said, for this debate. I see pitfalls for Biden because I don't think he has dementia. I think anyone who has a family member with dementia knows this, but I don't understand why you keep saying this. I watched those videos, Nick. That's a guy who's having trouble walking, slowing down. Yes, his gait is problematic, but he's not sitting there looking demented. Please stop this. You're not. And Doc.
I never said that he had dementia.
Well, Doc,
you know
Doc basically said that, and nobody said anything.
Doc says a
yes,
lot of
and Doc, as a chiropractor, you should know that you shouldn't be making those sort of judgments, right?
And he also has a stuttering problem that he has to over.
Here, I gotta ask you real quick because I want to get off the dementia topic right now. We'll go back to that later. But when it comes to Joe Biden, you're saying that he represents the Democrat base, and then RFK Jr. doesn't. Why not give RFK Jr. the ability to try to sell himself to the Democrat base instead of shutting the door on him, pushing him out, and making sure that he doesn't get any airtime? Because the only airtime he has gotten at this point has been from Twitter and Elon Musk's space, and we also had him on a space by ourselves a while ago. But how was that? You're calling yourself the Democrat Party, right? The Democratic Party. How was that democratic? That's the thing that people don't.
Look,
nobody can answer that question.
All of a sudden, the Democratic Party means that we have to follow rules that Republicans make up for us. Is that what the Democratic Party means? Because
no, it means you should follow the principles of your party.
If Republicans did not have
not rules, principles.
Republicans, Donald Trump didn't debate William Weld.
Kennedy is a lifelong Democrat.
Donald Trump did not debate William Weld, and he doesn't, I think, plan, Doc.
Wait, Tara, but what was William Weld polling?
I don't know. 2%, 1%. I don't know what it is. As I said, we are plenty.
So we've got a major candidate.
We don't know where he is right now. Okay, I don't. These polls are going to change over the next few months, and you know that, and I know that.
Of course they will, because if they keep shutting him out, of course he's going to go down in the polls.
Well, you can't. You're making a decision now on the basis of 12%. A couple of months ago it was 18%. In a few months, I'm betting you right now it's going to be closer to 6 to 5%. And then where are we? We're basically.
What do you want to bet?
Betting.
What do you
because
want to bet?
The more and more the Democratic Party keeps trying to shove him into the dirt, of course RFK Jr. is going to go down in the polls because he's not able to get any sort of media attention. Because, let's be honest here, CNN, MSNBC, they don't want to, because they try to sell themselves as news, but, they're pushing left-wing talking points. Let's be totally real here. They're not going to give RFK Jr. a real chance to get any sort of airtime. So how could he possibly go up in the polls if nobody is giving him the ability to actually debate this?
But nobody, Nick, can I ask you something? When are debates? When do debates normally happen?
Something here in just a second. I mean, I think debates should happen in, let's say an election's coming up, especially
in August when the Republican debate is happening. Do it in August.
Yeah. Okay. If you want an exact date, let's say August. Let's say August 21st. All right, we'll say that. But why not? Why not give people? This is the thing.
There's a key question.
Ask you this one last time, Kira, because I've been trying. This is what I've been trying to get at. Why not give people the option to choose? Why should they be forced to choose Joe Biden just because he's the current sitting president? His poll numbers have gone down. His approval ratings have gone down. Why not give Democrats an option? I'll give you that, and then I'll shift to Dustin.
So once again, if you're asking me in a vacuum, do I think people should debate? Yes, I do. Yes, I actually do. Okay. If you're asking me in a political situation like this, do I think that Joe Biden has to do something that no other incumbent has done for years and years? The answer is no. And I understand why the party would sort of say, no, we're basically going with our incumbent. That is what people have done. So yes, I agree that it's better to have open debate, but I also sort of feel like right now we don't really know where RFK, I keep saying that, where RFK is going to be. And I do not think, as I said, I've said this.
Well, it sounds like a great way to figure out where RFK Jr. would be is to, allow him to have a debate with the incumbent Joe Biden, even though, you're saying nobody has done that in the past. There's always time to.
Right. But Nick, you said you would let me get to point number 2. Do you remember that? And you kept on point number 1.
Point number 2.
So
okay,
point number 2 was your nonsense, and it really was. And by the way, Nick, I'm so glad. I hope you're feeling better, and I'm so glad you're feeling better. Okay. So point number 2 is what I view as your nonsense about Joe Biden did it and Hillary, all that stuff. Listen to me. Okay. we don't know about what's going to happen with Joe Biden. We do know about Mike Pence. There is a big difference if you read the indictment between willfully keeping and retaining documents and not knowing that you have them. And for you not to understand that legally, I get that, but you really shouldn't be making legal judgments when you do not seem to understand the basis of the indictment. Thank you.
Okay, but the question is.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out one question.
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I had my mic muted. Because my phone's lagging a little bit. Because so many of you are putting up your hands. So that's great. I love the debate. But I do want to say, Tira, I'm not trying to make a legal argument here. But if you have stuff in your possession that came literally 25 years before I was even born, and you're saying, well, I didn't know I had it. I moved houses 3 times, whatever, and it's in the garage right next to my Corvette. How can you plead negligence at that point?
Because it's not an issue.
But the investigation's still going on. Let it play out. He's being investigated by the special counsel.
It seems like Tira is saying that, well, Joe Biden had no way of knowing that he.
No, what I'm saying is there is, as I said, the Biden investigation is going on, right? Which is what Lev said, and which is what I said. If you listened, the Trump investigation, the allegations, and he is innocent until proven guilty, clearly, okay. But the allegations are that he knew what he had. He willfully kept it. He willfully showed it to people, and he willfully withheld it in violation of a lawful
They're his
subpoena.
records.
No,
He's
Doc,
allowed
Doc,
to
stop this.
retain them.
He's not allowed to have them. They're not his
Presidential
records.
Records Act. You should read
Oh
it.
my!
Tara.
I have to respond to this, Nick. Give me one quick second. Okay, do you want to read the Presidential Records Act together? We can pull
let's
it
read
up,
the
right?
whole thing. Let's read every statute.
Let's read the whole. Let's read the whole thing.
Let's go
I
get Leo. Leo knows it backwards and forwards. Okay.
Leo, I'm not even going to comment on Leo. Listen, we can paraphrase it here. Okay, at the end of the day, upon conclusion of a president's term in office, the archivist of the United States shall assume full control, custody, access to, and preservation of the records for that president. The notion that the Presidential Records Act, which was enacted basically
the president's election, he's entitled to retain every single document he declassifies.
Okay,
period.
where
And
has
they're
a
not
court
entitled
has
to
a
keep
court
his
ever
birth
has a
certificate,
court?
his driver's
No, you're wrong.
license,
You're wrong.
his
You're wrong.
marriage
Has a
license,
court
or go
has
to
a
the
court
first lady's underwear drawer? Okay.
has a court ever
Subpoenas
ruled? Has a
subpoenas
court ever
identify
ruled?
the particular.
Has a court ever ruled that what you're saying is in fact true? Or has a court ever ruled, and we can use the Clinton socks drawer case, right? That those are records created by the president.
There are thousands of
Can I
laws that
finish?
have never been tested in court, Ben. Never.
Absolutely. Well, no, that's not exactly true in this case. The Presidential Records Act is crystal clear. Those records do not belong to Donald Trump. They are agency records.
You are
Well,
wrong.
I'm right. Let's read their act
You are
together. I'm
wrong.
right.
You are
Tell me how
wrong.
I'm wrong. Read from the act and tell me how I'm wrong. This is ridiculous.
I read from the Constitution first. He has plenary power. Okay, those are his documents.
They are not his documents.
Obama has every single document in Chicago, and he ordered the military to take them there in November 2016, and they opened up an office of the presidential, the whatever that damn agency is in Washington D.C. That's the day had NARA. Thank you. They opened up an office in NARA, and if you want to do a fair request of Obama's administration, you have to go to the NARA office in Chicago. That's run by Obama's library staff.
Nothing you just said has any relevance to do with the Presidential Records Act.
Nonsense. You talking about how other presidents have been prosecuted, or if they've been prosecuted or not prosecuted under these same statutes. Nick mentioned over and over again that the presence of presidential value with these cases. This has never been done.
Point out, Doc,
ever.
Doc, let me point out something that Ben said a little bit ago, which is if Trump had gotten in a golf cart and taken it to a post office and sent him out, there's no charges. So you tell me that literally he's being charged because he didn't get in a golf cart and go deliver them on the schedule of the lawyers who demand supremacy, the arrogance of the lawyers who are right. This is really they see it as an attack on lawyer supremacy, and that's why they're going after the obstruction of justice nonsense here.
No, it's because his assistant went and gave an interview in front of the DOJ. His assistant went in front of the DOJ and said that he knows nothing about the records being moved or anything. And then the same day or a day after, there's video of him going back, taking boxes and away from there and putting other boxes back and with the missing records. Now, that's not obstruction?
No, again, if he would not have been charged if he had just dropped in a golf cart and drove it over, and the reason he's being charged is that they had to take it to court, right? This was the argument Ben was making, right? It's literally just arrogance of lawyers because Trump dared question their supremacy of their authority. It's ridiculous.
They were in constant contact with Trump's attorneys, right? The Secret Service, they'd all been there before. They changed the lock on the storage facility. This was, as Dustin's right, this was lawyers talking to lawyers, right? And Trump was not charged with retention of any top secret documents. So stop with this nonsense that he was waving around and showing top secret documents to someone at his club in New Jersey. Didn't happen, wasn't charged. Fuck this superseding indictment nonsense. That's specious talk by a prosecutor who's corruptly
Doc,
charged.
you should be on Trump's legal team. I think he needs you on his legal team. That's where you belong.
The other thing you're all ignoring.
I think you should be in the mail office, making sure that everyone's postcards get delivered as promised.
The other thing you need to be questioning is, why is there this whole investigation into his documents? Like, why is there some sort of court proceeding that, in order to create this whole obstruction thing? As Doc pointed out, Barack Obama airlifted all his records to Chicago. There's no investigation into like what's happening to them or what the story is. He ended up having a whole fight about creating a new presidential library in a different state, a different city. That'd be his own personal deal. What?
Obama had an agreement with NARA, and I know you know this.
Not when he started.
No, he had an agreement. NARA has confirmed that. NARA has confirmed
it wasn't an
there was
agreement.
an
NARA has no power.
This isn't. No, you're wrong.
NARA has no power to force an agreement on the president.
But Obama.
It's plenary power.
Oh, stop.
Plenary power under the Constitution. No law under the Constitution supersedes it. All right, there's no agreement between
I have pointed out to
and
you
President Obama.
several times.
It doesn't matter what you point out to me. It doesn't.
That's right. It doesn't
fact.
establish anything because you don't listen to reason and you don't understand. In spite of being a lawyer, you seem to not understand certain laws.
He's not, Kyra. He's not a lawyer. Stop calling him a lawyer.
He is an attorney. Okay, well, we can debate that. We can debate that another time. But Doc, I'll let you finish your point. Then I'm going to shift a little bit. Go ahead, Doc.
I'm sorry, were you letting me have the microphone for once? Yeah. Okay.
Well, for once. Dude, come on, man. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I got to jump in because there's so much nonsense. Look, this whole room is the emperor has no clothes, right? People are looking at the obvious and denying it. Biden is walking around as naked as the story in that parable, right? This is ridiculous. He's a corrupt, senile, old pedophile, and everyone's pretending, well, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to see it. It's obvious. Go look at Marco Polo, right? Go look at the Twitter files. There's so much.
Trump made comments about his own daughter Ivanka. Are you crazy? You're calling him a pedophile? Take a look at what Trump said about his own daughter. About her ass and tits. What's wrong with you? That's okay.
When did Ivanka say she took showers with her old man? Right?
I would love for you to post to the top any sort of quotes you have from Donald Trump about his commenting on, his daughter's tits and ass.
Absolutely, I'll do that.
Wait. So either I want you to tell me right now: is that a quote? Is that a direct? Let's put you on the record. Is that a direct quote? Did Donald Trump talk about his daughter's boobs and ass?
I will post the article about it, and you will see the next episode.
Direct quote. Yes or no?
Yeah. Direct quote to who, Nick? Direct quote to me? No, he did not tell me he wants to screw his daughter.
Right, I'm going to get off this topic because clearly that wasn't actually a direct quote. But yeah, go ahead, Ben.
I just want to, so just to what Doc said, right? So here's verbatim. Here it is. The ownership of presidential records under the Presidential Records Act. The United States shall reserve and retain complete ownership, possession, and control of presidential records, and such shall records be administered. Can I finish? May I finish?
No, because you're repeating.
No, you're wrong, Doc. You're wrong. Okay, we need to call out misinformation.
I'm not wrong.
Can I finish? Can you mute him? Can you mute him for a moment?
To a president. Nowhere in the statute.
What are you talking about? It applies to the president above all people. That's why it's called the Presidential Records Act. Allow me to finish my point. The chapter. It was.
Bring you back up.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. Okay, maybe Trump has a valid legal defense. Okay, it has to be tested in court. But the notion that the Presidential Records Act gives him carte blanche is ridiculous. The United States shall reserve and retain complete ownership, possession, and control of presidential records, and such records shall be administered in accordance with the provision of this chapter. That's the first point. The second point, 2 seconds here. Upon the conclusion of a president's term of office, or if a president serves consecutive terms upon the conclusion of the last term, the archivist of the United States shall assume responsibility for the custody, control, preservation of, and access to the presidential records of that president. The archivist shall have an affirmative duty to make such records available to the public as rapidly and completely as possible, consistent with the provisions of that chapter. So the notion that the Presidential Records Act is going to give Donald Trump even a defense is absurd.
At the same time, if you look at 2205 of the Presidential Records Act, subsection 3 says
the previous topic.
Okay, so it says 2205 subsection 3 reads, the presidential records of a former president shall be available to such former presidents or the former president's designated representative. That being the case, we all can agree that under the Presidential Records Act, that the left loves to cite as a basis to go after Donald Trump, that Donald Trump has the unfettered right to go in and review these records and get access to this information for the rest of his life, anything that was generated during his administration.
There's a process to request the reviewing of those documents, and you know
Accordingly, since he has that unfettered right, even whether or not he has to fill out a form or not, he has that right under the Presidential Records Act. This is not a matter of there being an investigation to see whether he is inappropriately accessing information that you or I would not have the right to access. This is really a matter of there being physical papers which happen to have words on them that is already in possession of the government, that he has a copy of, that technically, because the ownership belongs to NARA, that he should have to go to their facility to get it. That's what this entire congressional investigation was into.
Here's a question for you: the following: Do agency records fall within the purview of the Presidential Records Act? Are these documents agency records, or are they personal records?
Not just personal records. No, not just personal records. He's allowed to take.
Part of the
he retains ownership of.
They're all executive records. Every
it says notwithstanding any restrictions on access imposed pursuant to sections 2204 and 2208. That's what 2205 says. There is nothing that was created during his administration that is beyond a former president's purview. So that's why I'm saying this is not a matter of him having access to information. That's what makes this whole investigation, this whole congressional hearing, so partisan and persecutive, because there's no basis to really go after him and charge him with anything. If anything, there's a civil claim that, hey, you're holding certain documents that we don't want you to have. But to try and turn this into a criminal investigation and then try to bootstrap that into a basis to create an obstruction charge because he's not going along with what Congress is asking for, Jack Smith is asking for, is absurd. And the public recognizes it's absurd, and that's why his popularity keeps increasing.
I'd like to ask the following
question.
This
is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do real quick, and we will shift back to this topic here in just a little bit. But I do want to get back onto what this space is actually about. Who's most qualified to be the next president of the United States? Trump, Biden, or RFK? And this is a question that we've been getting a lot from the audience, actually, wanting to know from our panelists. And again, I want to encourage everybody to put your questions down in the bottom right-hand corner. Who do you think's most qualified? Is it Trump, Biden, or RFK? And we're going through our audience questions right now. But Dustin, I know you're a pretty big supporter of President Trump. I want to ask you real quick, if RFK Jr. happened to be on Donald Trump's ticket, I don't know who did that, but that's bad. Never do that again. If RFK Jr. were to be on not Dustin's ticket, Trump's
Dustin for
ticket,
president. Let's go.
And he's running for president. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, on Trump's ticket to be vice president of the United States, would that help him, and would you support that?
I'd 100% support it. I think the places I've been hypercritical of Trump have been specifically the issues that RFK is absolutely fantastic on, like the mRNA vaccines, the regular vaccines, the deep state rot at FDA and other places. But RFK down there, I think the RFK all the way. I think you're going to agree with this. I actually don't want him on Trump's ticket. I think his best value is cleaning up the Democrat Party. I think the Democrat Party has been cookie cutter. The candidates have been cookie cutter. They've offered nothing new in the ways of ideas. They've offered nothing to challenge and make themselves better, really, since Obama, right? Obama has been totally his people. His machine has been in total control. And I think that there's a rot there that is not healthy. I think RFK's best value to us as a nation is to wake up Democrats to be the kind of disruption agent that Trump was to the Republican Party in 2015 and 2016 to the Democratic Party this cycle. So I don't want to say that RFK is the best option for Trump, because I'd like to see him go in, and I think he's already shocking people. They've tried to trot out the usual attacks that he's, anti-vaxxer, conspiracy theorist. They've tried to cut him off. They've tried to censor him, and he continues to be competitive in a way that terrifies him. I got a call from a reporter a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, who had just gotten off the phone with RFK and was asking me like almost the exact same question you did there. And what he told me is a couple of things. One, he had several quotes. He'd been talking to Democratic officials who were panicked that RFK was doing as well as he did, despite the fact that they basically used everything in their toolbox to keep him from participating in the debate. So for me, I want to see RFK get in and shake the Democratic Party up, because I want two healthy parties in this country. And right now, I think we have zero.
All right, so RFK all the way. Matthew, you were very adamantly against the idea of Trump having RFK Jr. on his ticket. I want to know why. Why would that not be a good ticket, and why would you disagree with that idea?
Yeah, so it's a psyop that was concocted by someone who is associated with Trump, and Bobby Kennedy has totally disclaimed it. He said, under no circumstances. Under no circumstances. So it's not even worth talking about, and it's a total distraction. And even talking about it as a distraction. But what I would like to talk about is two things, okay? Democracy and free speech, all right? So on the topic of free speech, Bobby Kennedy Jr. would free Julian Assange on day one. We do not have real journalism in this country, and it is necessary. The fourth estate is necessary to have a functional government. Right now, 95% at minimum of our media is propaganda run by the CIA and their affiliates. You should call MSNBC, MSN, CIA. So Julian Assange is one of the most important journalists of our generation. He exposed the corrupt war machine. He exposed the collateral murder. He exposed what was going on in Iraq. And in terms of democracy, okay, so the undemocratic party, why does Biden owe Bobby Kennedy Jr. a debate? It's real simple. Joe Biden has been unconstitutionally and illegally censoring Bobby Kennedy Jr. It goes beyond just not being willing to debate. He is actively engaged in censorship. The Biden administration has been caught using the CIA to tell YouTube to take down Bobby Kennedy Jr. interviews. Numerous channels have had interviews taken off, strikes issued against them. He's being deplatformed. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. just won a lawsuit against the Biden administration. And the judge ruled with Bobby Kennedy Jr. saying the Biden administration cannot unconstitutionally censor him. So the poll numbers, first of all, he is the most favorable. Bobby Kennedy Jr. has plus 20% favorables. Both Trump and Biden are significantly underwater. A majority of Biden's voters don't even want him to run again. Okay, so yes, Bobby Kennedy Jr. is he's actually at 20%, not 12% in some of the polls. And I think he's being suppressed because of this censorship. So the idea that the Democratic Party should not hold debates because it hasn't been done in the past, that's like, well, yeah, we've been undemocratic in the past, so we're going to just continue to be undemocratic. They rigged the primaries in the past. They've been caught rigging the primaries. They rigged the primaries against Bernie Sanders. We don't have a Democratic Party. It is the undemocratic party. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. is trying to restore the Democratic Party of his uncle. And the last thing I want to say is, yes, the CIA assassinated JFK. Read the books, The Devil's Chessboard, okay, and JFK and the Unspeakable. Both Trump and Biden were supposed to release their records, and both of them did not. Trump did not do it. Biden didn't do it. Both of them are scared out of their minds of the CIA. Why? Because the CIA overthrew our government. I'm going to say it again. The CIA overthrew the government of the United States on November 22nd, 1963. That's what matters. What matters is the CIA is running the show. So we need a president who's actually going to restore democracy to America.
They did it in 2022.
Dan, let me bring you in here real quick, because you are I think you're running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat. RFK Jr. is also a Democrat. What are your problems with him? You know, why do you think Joe Biden should be the nominee over somebody like RFK Jr.? Is he too Trump-like? I mean, which side? What are you thinking? Let me ask that first.
Sorry, you were asking me. Okay.
I was actually, yes.
Awesome. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I've actually been wanting to answer that question for quite some time. And unfortunately, a lot of people on this panel have been beating the same dog with a stick over and over again. All right. What's important is, number one, the DNC does not want RFK to be the nominee for president. And because of that, it won't happen. And what I mean for that, as a candidate who's run as a Democrat, I'm kind of an outsider Democrat for a federal office in my state. I've seen it firsthand what they do. They come in and they will tell the state party what to do, and the state parties are going to control the primary election. That's what people need to understand. Number one, it doesn't matter what RFK is polling at. If all of the state parties are working for Joe Biden, then Joe Biden is going to win the majority of the state primaries.
Dan, I would love to have more opinion from you, but you got to pull over and get out of your car first, because, or buy a car that has less road noise. It's one of the two. But
Nick,
you know,
Nick, can I ask a quick question?
Nick,
One quick question.
Go ahead.
And that is this: you need to sort of analyze what the purpose of a debate is. We all like to think that the purpose of a debate is to help the American public decide who they think is their best candidates. But it's clear that both the RNC and DNC do not look at the debate as that, but as a marketing tool. That to the extent it will help the candidate that they want win, that's when they will have a debate. To the extent that it may hurt their candidates, that's when they will not have a debate. And we've seen both sides do that. And the reason we get so baffled by it is because we still live under this pie in the sky notion that the purpose of debate is to inform the public. And I don't think that that's how the RNC or DNC actually look at it.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here, because we have Dr. Gorka back up here on stage, and again, I want to encourage audience questions on that bottom right-hand corner. We have our team going through it right now. Dr. Gorka, welcome back. I want to ask you, do you think that it would be a good idea, or something that's even realistic, for President Trump to have RFK Jr. on his ticket as vice president? What are your thoughts?
You know, it's the kind of unpredictable, non-establishment thing that he could do. Beyond messing with the DNC, I wouldn't advise it. As far as I'm concerned, he's not a serious individual. I don't trust him as far as I can spit him on Second Amendment issues. He thinks he shouldn't be allowed to question, climate change. So, I'm not a fan of him, but as a destabilizer, an individual who spent nothing on a campaign and then, 3 weeks after he announces, has 19 points because of his name recognition. It's the kind of cat amongst the pigeon things the president would probably, I can imagine him floating it in a Truth Social post in the next couple of months, just to see the utter meltdown of the left and the corporate media. But no, I don't think it would actually happen. And I wouldn't like to see it happen. But man, oh man, could we have fun with that.
But Dr. Gorka, so we've had a lot of people up on the panel here arguing that Joe Biden should not have to debate RFK Jr. because nobody in the past has, no other.
Nick, Trump said that he's not going to debate either. I posted an article.
That's another topic, Lev. I'm trying to ask about the current president of the United States, because we can go back and say what about no other president has done it or whatever. Why not change that in the name of, because Democrats like to say that, everything is a threat to our democracy. Is it not a threat to our democracy to say that a major presidential candidate should not have the opportunity to debate?
Well, look, you're being deliberately provocative in terms of the language the Democrats are using. The greatest threat to democracy is the Democrat Party and the Biden administration right now. But look, there have been examples in the 20th century. I think in the last 60 years, there have been 2 incumbents who were primaried, but it is incredibly rare, incredibly unusual. Why? Because what is the establishment saying about the person they picked 4 years ago or 3 years ago? They're saying, no, we don't trust you anymore, and we want to throw you under the bus, but we're using the primary process to give that a veneer of respectability. They'd really the only way it would happen if they really truly believe he has no way of winning. I've been seeing signs in the last few months, whether it was the disclosure, which wasn't by him, of the classified documents in his office in DC, the classified documents in his garage, the classified documents in Delaware. I saw that as a potential sign of somebody inside the DNC establishment trying to get rid of him. Now we have the cocaine bag in the sit room in the White House. None of this is conclusive evidence that the center wants to get rid of him. And it's really hard. It's very hard for them to remove an incumbent or to say, okay, we're going to open up the field. So there would have to be something truly disastrous whereby it is empirically decided that he can't win, and that's the only time that you could even countenance a primary. And then it's not going to be RFK. It's going to be Gavin Newsom or somebody like that.
Aaron?
I just wanted to add one thing to what Matthew said, and he was really eloquent about it, but I just want to add one thing. I don't know if people realize this is headline news that the Biden administration silenced Bobby Kennedy. They shut down his platforms. He only recently, weeks ago, got back to one of his platforms with over, he's 1 million followers there. And I think this is unprecedented. So I can understand why usually, yes, an incumbent wouldn't have to debate, but in this case, it is the incumbent who silenced Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, and didn't let him have a voice. And if his ratings or the polls have shown that he's declined, I think it's only because of mainstream. He's right now suing the media. So of course, mainstream is furious. He's suing them. They're pharmaceutical funded, which he says he would stop, by the way. He could sign one thing with this one signature. He says he could stop pharmaceutical advertisements from being allowed on television. And I think that's just has to stop. Sorry, we have a little technical difficulties on this end.
So to the debate issue, like real quick, because I'm sympathetic to the argument that the incumbents don't normally have to debate. However, with Biden's cognitive decline and all the ways we're seeing it, I think it's more necessary than ever to show that he still has the cognitive function to do a debate. They owe that to the United States voting population and the Democrat primary voters to answer the question one way or the other. And like I said, it played to his favor in the presidential debates against Trump because the expectations were set so low for him. But I agree that it's unprecedented, but it's also unprecedented to see a president declining cognitively as fast as we've seen Biden.
Yeah, so I'll hit Dr. Gorka on this because you spent a lot of time working in the White House, and everybody talks about Joe Biden's age versus Donald Trump's age and whatnot. I mean, being that you spent a lot of time around President Trump and you've seen him over the years, especially since 2016 when he first.
Hey Nick, you're rubber banding pretty good, buddy.
I'm doing what? I rubber banding? I don't know.
I was hearing fine, Nick.
Okay, all right. Well, Dr. Gorka, I'll go back to that. You've been around Donald Trump since 2015, I believe, when he first announced that he was running for president.
I was asked to work for him in 15.
Yeah. Right. And, we see where he is now versus where Joe Biden is right now. I mean, while they are kind of close in age, the mental decline, have you noticed a lot more from President Biden versus President Trump? I mean, is Donald Trump just as sharp as he was back in 2015? And I want an honest answer to that, because a lot of people make the argument that, well, they're the same age, so they're both having the same mental decline. Let's say,
the chronological age thing is a canard. You just have to look at the performance. It's not the age. It's what is that line from Raiders of the Lost Ark? It's not the years. It's the mileage. You just have to what one thing. If you're a Democrat, look at videos of Biden from just 6 years ago. Look at videos of him 10 years ago, and you will go, oh my good Lord, what has happened to this man? And we know he's had 2 brain aneurysms. And you just have to look at his performance, look at how he walked around with King Charles yesterday. I mean, the man looks decrepit. With President Trump, I have no answer for you. I can't give you the empirical facts of the matter, but it's like Benjamin Button. I mean, look at photographs of Bush, you know, when he starts, and look at photographs of him 4 years later. Look at the same with Obama 8 years later. They age like, 20 years in 8. Obama went completely gray. President Trump, I don't know what it is, whether it's the Scots, Irish, German genes or whatever it is. He's just as fresh as he was 5 years ago. You look at him perform at the rallies. You look at him, buying, what was it, the blizzards for everybody at the Dairy Queen. It's just a guy who, look, I'll be brutally honest with you. What was it? It was 6 years ago. So I was 47 when I worked in the White House. And I could not keep up with the man. He was 20 years older than me. And people would always ask me, so is it you, Seb? Are you the one tweeting on the president's account at 4 a.m.? And I'd say, no, that's him. He's tweeting at 4 a.m. He is, I don't know whether it's no alcohol, no cigarettes, and just all the Diet Cokes, but the man is indefatigable. And that truly is, something I witnessed at first hand in the White House. The guy was like Maggie Thatcher. He slept between 2.5 and 4 hours a night, and he was up before us, and he went to bed after us.
All right, so Tira, let me bring you back in on this, because I have to ask you, because maybe you're not a Democrat. You kind of sound like a Democrat, so I have to ask you this question just a little bit. Are Democrats, your mainstream run-of-the-mill, everyday Joe Democrats, noticing any sort of mental decline in Joe Biden? Is he still qualified to be president of the United States? Are they having any, fears that maybe he's not all there, maybe he's not the best candidate to have? And I want your honest opinion on that.
Okay, first, I just want to say that if you had 2 brain aneurysms 35 years ago, that doesn't necessarily mean that your brain is impacted 35 years later. Those aneurysms were 1988, okay? Number 2, I wish we had a different candidate. I think most Democrats actually do. I think that I think Donald Trump, frankly, is too old, but I think Joe Biden is too old. Okay.
But Tira, didn't you just argue a few minutes ago that we shouldn't be having debates in the Democrat Party?
Nick, these are not, no, Nick, these are, look, I think most Democrats wish that there was a younger candidate in general, just like I wish the whole field were younger. I wish we weren't having a repeat of Trump versus Biden. I honestly feel like this is not good for America in many ways, all right? But that said, if you're asking me, I think that Joe Biden has, like many people of 80, but not all, and I think Donald Trump is not one of them, has slowed down, okay? It's clear. It's slowed down in his gait. I don't know that his brain has slowed down. I think people are making all sorts of weird assumptions everybody's like a doctor. Oh, there's dementia. I don't think that's true. But I do think he's slowed down. He's always had a stutter. He's always made gaps. He's always had flubs. He does a few more of them. This is what happens as you get older. That doesn't mean you cannot perform your job, and it doesn't mean you can't get qualified people around you. But I do honestly wish we had a younger candidate, okay? I wish both candidates were younger. I think this is ridiculous, to be honest. But I don't know what we're supposed to do about this, because they are the 2 leading candidates.
Let them debate.
No. But I'm not talking about Bobby. Look, but you asked me,
you don't have to be talking about Bobby Kennedy. Let somebody else in the Democrat
Trump
Party.
and Biden will debate. I have if Trump is willing, I have no doubt there will be debates, okay? I'm just not saying that we should overturn the precedent just because you, as a Republican, seem to want to overturn it for Joe Biden. That's my view of this, okay?
No, but no. I'm not arguing on that. Tira, I'm not arguing on that side. What I'm saying is I'm literally arguing about a Democrat coming in, somebody that would be a stronger Democrat even. And yes, I am more on the conservative side. A Democrat coming in that would be stronger against even Donald Trump. Because at the end of the day, I'm an American. I'm a very patriotic American. I want what's best for this country, Republican or Democrat. Okay? So if I'm arguing to say that there should be a stronger, more mentally stable and somebody that's got a higher mental capacity, let's say, than Joe Biden currently has. Why is the attack line?
But
Well, you're just a
I'm
Republican and you don't
disagreeing
like
with
Joe
you.
Biden.
I'm saying that you're making an assumption about mental acuity based upon physical gait and certain stumbling and flubs that Joe Biden has always done. Always. Years. Go back. All right. Look, yes, he's slower. What I'm saying is
nothing remotely like what we saw.
Stop. I said
it's not even close.
I said his gait has slowed down, and I think he is
Forget
slower.
his gait.
No,
his mouth.
He's
His mouth.
slower at responding to things, and he's making more gaps. That happens. Does that mean
he doesn't
stop?
understand questions?
Even if he's slower to respond, he's even slower to respond. But he still is making more gaps. He's still saying more stupid shit. Can't even actually come out.
You know what, Nick? I'm sitting here looking at a president who has gathered NATO together and convinced them to support Ukraine. You might disagree with this, but he has gathered them together and done this. I'm looking at a president who somehow, in the middle of all this, we have Hungary. We have Turkey willing to agree to Sweden. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
No, she's not.
Oh.
Nope, so I meant she's good.
Okay. I'm looking at a president who basically today, I just read that Turkey is now indicating that it will consider Sweden. I mean, I don't know what you're saying because it seems to me that he is doing the policies he wants to. You might disagree with the policies.
What did Joe Biden have to do with this? And then, if we want to go into the Ukraine thing.
At the NATO summit.
This does kind of hit on...
He's not in charge of the NATO summit.
Is there,
we are talking about who's
there. He's a
president.
He's a chair.
Talking about Ukraine, okay? Do you genuinely believe, and we'll go to the panel after this because I actually did see this in the comments section, bottom right hand corner, guys, by the way. Do you think this Ukraine war or whatever would have happened under Donald Trump? Because, what we've seen is, even somebody like Xi Jinping, he doesn't respect
It did happen
President
under
Biden.
Donald Trump. Nick, it did happen under Donald Trump.
It didn't happen under Donald
Yes,
Trump.
It
It happened it happened under President Biden.
But he allowed
Biden
him to do it.
and President Obama. When was Crimea taken, Lev? When
Crimea was taken 2014.
2014. Who was president of the United States?
Obama.
Okay.
And then when Trump came in 2016, what did he do? He said he's going to say that there was no wars. The war was going on. He did nothing to stop it.
Okay, what happened? What happened?
The war continued. Yeah, it escalated. It escalated to a point that when he left office and left it in disarray, that gave Putin a window of opportunity to invade.
Trump's promise to America was not to engage in foreign wars.
You believe that this war? So what you're saying is the war continued based on the fact that that Ukraine wasn't able to take back Crimea, that Obama let go in 2014. That meant that the war was still going on and being
Nick,
escalated.
When you say Obama let go, Obama wasn't president of Ukraine. What do you mean he let go? If you wanted Obama to,
you're saying that Trump let go part of Ukraine and furthered the war. I mean, I'm just
no. I said Trump. I said Trump gave Putin the window of opportunity to do the invasion. The war was going on while Trump was in office.
Did Putin invade? Yes or no? Let me ask you, Lev, just real quick. Yes or no? Did Putin invade while Trump was president of the United States? Yes or no?
No, he didn't invade while he was president of the United States. But he was escalated. That you don't invade, Nick. You don't invade in one day. The preparation takes years to invade. So he was preparing while Trump was in office. And then when it came time, he invaded.
All right. And you genuinely believe that he still would have invaded Ukraine if Trump was still president of the United States? Because it's very worth noting how many wars did Donald Trump start?
I don't think he would have invaded. I think Trump would have given him Ukraine. That's a big difference.
Trump would have given him Ukraine?
Well, let me ask you a question. When Trump says that he's going to stop this war in 24 hours, let me ask you, Nick, how do you see Trump stopping this war in 24or hours?
Stop providing ammunition to Ukraine. That's how.
So what does that? Okay,
force him to go to the peace table.
Doc, shut up. What does that mean? You made a comment. Doc, you made a comment, but explain on it. Okay, so he stops giving them ammunition. What happens to Ukraine?
They go to the peace table.
Peace table? Yeah. Why? Because you said
Remember
so.
Vietnam, Lev?
What do you mean?
They
they're
had
going to
peace
get?
talks there
They're
for
going
8 years. Why have
millions of people, tens of millions of people are displaced.
Right now, Lev. Why are they not at the peace table right now?
They're fighting because they're fighting for their sovereignty. Because they're fighting for their sovereignty.
Every Ukrainian in Europe. That's what he wants. Ukrainians are dying in this war. They're losing.
They're dying in the war to stop their sovereignty. They're defending their sovereignty
Ukraine in a war on Russia's border. any more than Russia could support a war from Mexico on our border. It's nonsense. This is over. We should be talking peace, period.
Oh, I agree. We should be talking peace, but peace with who? With Putin? You think Putin would talk peace?
Yes, he's the leader of Russia.
You're a historian. So you're a historian also.
Of Russia. What are you going to do about that, Lev? You want to nuke him?
What are you talking?
You want to nuke him?
What does nuking him have to do with? No, because that.
You want to start World War III?
When I talk about those, World War III is not starting.
Murdered?
Doc, this is all bullshit agenda.
Trump
just
said
like
on CNN, he wants people
to
stop dying.
You're just propagandaing. There's no nuke war.
He wants people to stop dying. How come
Putin didn't nuke us yet? He's been saying the red line's been crossed plenty of times. How many times did he say?
Because he's winning.
Why is he winning? Where is he winning?
All right.
Come on,
Jim, welcome back to the panel. Jump in real quick. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that the entire discussion about that even would imply that Putin was going to at all have any incentive to invade Ukraine during Trump's administration is absolutely bogus. I mean, I don't even know where you get implying that. And yes, you're right, Lev. It takes time to plan a war, no doubt about it. And there's no doubt that Putin has had his eyes on Ukraine for a long time. We will get that. But there is absolutely no doubt that the incentive to go into Ukraine was immediately stopped during the Trump administration. It was absolutely encouraged during the Obama administration, especially with the red button read set.
How was it stopped, Jim? How was it stopped? How did Trump stop the incentive for Putin to go into Ukraine?
The incentive was stopped, Lev, and the reason the incentive went away is because you had a guy in the White House who wasn't taking bullcrap from people. Now you can talk about all the little dilly-dally things about Donald Trump that everyone dislikes, and some of which I dislike as well. That's irrelevant to this. The fact is that Donald Trump made it very clear privately in the things that he was doing when he had.
How do you know? How do you know?
Let me finish.
You were in those conversations.
Lev, you can
but Jim, how do you know? You're just
Lev, finish in a moment. When the private discussions that Donald Trump is having with world leaders that no one listens to, except the Ukraine call, the perfect call, by the way, and it was a perfect call, and then the public things that Donald Trump did, in combination, brought a radical change in the way that presidents had been approaching foreign policy. That was a big positive because it was asymmetrical. So no, Putin was sitting back saying, "Whoa, maybe Trump's a crazy guy, or maybe he's smart, or I don't know." And I think Putin's a pretty sophisticated guy. Don't get me wrong. I hate him. I think he's an evil genius, but he's evil. I don't know how much of a genius even, but that asymmetry kept people like Putin at bay. Whereas Obama's obeisance to the foreign policy way of doing things that the State Department had done and always does opened the door for 2014 and for other things. So no, Donald Trump was definitely a disincentive to Putin. And no, it wouldn't have happened under his watch.
Okay, so
first, let me respond to him, Nick. Let me respond to him quickly. Okay, so first of all, Obama didn't open the door in 2014. If you know any of the history, Jim, the reason why there was a Maidan in 2014 because Putin's government in Ukraine, Putin thought that he was going to have a win and have what's his name, Yanukovych, to make a deal with Russia instead of the EU and turn Ukraine closer to Russia than the West. Is why the people stood up. That's not to say that America didn't have an influence in it. It's not to say that America didn't have help out of that. But that was what the people stood
hold
up.
on. Before you go on, wait a minute. What are you talking about? You saying that Obama had nothing to do with Yanukovych getting into power? Are you kidding me?
No. What do you wait? What did I say? Obama had nothing to do with Yanukovych getting into power. I said
You're saying that
Yanukovych. Yanukovych.
You said that there was nothing that going on our side. That influenced that was just entirely finding an opportunity. How did we get to that point after 2008?
Stop. Okay, answer. What did Obama do to make Yanukovych go say on the last day when the Maidan started that he's not going to sign with the EU, that he's going to lean towards Russia? Why did he say that?
Give me a little help here.
Go ahead.
Lev, give me a little help.
Answer the question.
Lev, I'm going to. Let me ask you a question, Lev.
If you answer mine, then you could ask me.
How is it that you always want to go to something in a vacuum. Yeah, I get the NATO thing. Everybody understands that. But please, you do not think that the whole red button reset bullcrap and everything that surrounded all of the background negotiations and front negotiations with that didn't lead into that problem? Are you kidding me?
What are you talking? Yanukovych was a pro-Russian guy. He was a crook.
Yeah, guys,
being
we're going
advised
way
by Manafort.
into the weeds
By
now,
Manafort.
guys. We're going way into the weeds. So here's what I'm going to do, actually. I'm going to bring three of you guys in. I'm going to give you 45 seconds each, and I am going to give you a buzzer if you go over 45 seconds, so you should be counting. Sarah, give your best case for Joe Biden, remaining president of the United States. And, you can add anything about his mental state, whatever you want to. We'll do that. And then I'm going to give it to
Hey, Nick,
Matthew.
I'm
RFK,
having
I'm gonna
reconnecting
let him-
issues, so you'll have to, yeah. So,
Oh, well, you must not have anything good to say about Joe Biden. So we'll go to Tira. We'll let Tira do it, give you 45 seconds. We're going to go to Matthew, RFK, all the way pod, and then we'll wrap up with Dr. Gorka, if that's okay. Tira, give your best shot for Joe Biden, and then we'll move on from there. Go ahead.
Okay.
45 seconds, counting down.
We have stabilized our position in the world. All right. We have reconstituted NATO as a very functional, good organization. We have the Infrastructure Act, which is actually doing good things. We are trying very hard to safeguard our electoral process from some very negative things going on in various states. We also have a great job reports. Obviously, the economy still needs work, but we are doing better than most other countries are. We have the lowest unemployment, I believe, maybe ever. We certainly have lowest unemployment for Blacks, etc. Things are going in the right direction, and they will become more positive if we let Joe Biden continue. And also, one further point, Donald Trump is a danger to our democracy. He has basically convinced 50% of or 60% of his followers that the election was stolen in physical form when it was not.
Stolen.
Shut
Absolutely.
up, Doc. I get 45 seconds. When it was not. When it was not.
I'm gonna
And
lie.
that to me,
Doc,
stop,
don't make me
Jesus.
give her more time.
And that
Go
to
ahead,
me is something that is truly dangerous. We have a whole population of people who are convinced that something was stolen when it wasn't. We have to work against that and maybe all figure out how to come together. Thank you.
All right, Matthew, 45 seconds. Let's hear it. RFK Jr.
Funding overseas proxy wars and sacrificing the youth of Ukraine and Russia so BlackRock, Raytheon, and weapons manufacturers can enrich themselves is immoral, it's corrupt, it's bankrupting our country, and it's making those among us who need the most hope, people who need food stamps, people who need Medicaid, to go without. Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s campaign is about healing the divide. It's about transcending the blue and the red and bringing together everyone as red, white, and blue under the values of free speech and ending the corrupt merger of state and corporate power so that the corporations are not running this country, but instead we have democracy by the people and for the people. It's restoring free speech. It's restoring journalism to this country as a functional enterprise, ending the propaganda, ending the CIA's control over our foreign policy and the decisions we make so that when we go overseas, thank you. All right.
Sounds great. Dr. Gorka, 45 seconds. We're going to let you wrap it up. Why is Donald Trump the most qualified to be the next president of the United States? Let's hear it, Dr. Gorka. 45 seconds. Okay, Dr. Gorka seems to be busy, so let's go to Dustin.
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Wait, he's here. Yeah.
I won't need 45 seconds. It's very simple. No wars for 4 years. Biggest economy America has ever seen. And finally, we had a man who represented the people and not the bi-coastal elites of the Democrat Party or the RNC. That's why we need him back. Period. End of story. We need a citizen, not a politician.
All right, guys, we appreciate the panelists. Thank you guys for coming on. It was a really vigorous debate, and that's exactly what we love. We got to a lot of audience questions today, so we definitely appreciate you guys kind of pitching in. It really helps us run the show, so thank you so much for doing that. So we'll be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern time, maybe 6:10 Eastern time, depends on whether or not we're ready. But yeah, so join us back tomorrow. Thank you all for coming, and we're going to wrap up now. Mario?
Thank you, Nick. And also, I think everyone on this panel and in the audience is very happy that you are recovering. Okay. And I really want to say that with all my heart.
100%.
No matter what. Thank you, Lev. Thank you, the following. Thank you, Doc. Sarah, really appreciate it. It means a lot. Very humbling.
And thank you to the panel to the extent you're able to display respect to the other side. It actually makes these spaces amazing.